Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? The 76ers, I'm not going to lie to you, they are on my mind 24/7 ever since we heard the news that Ben Simmons will be playing off the ball more. Shake Milton will slide in. It's very intriguing, no doubt about it. And on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN from 2 to 6 p.m., Mike Gill and I had on Marc Jackson of NBC Sports Philadelphia to discuss what exactly this means. What does this mean for Ben Simmons, Shake Milton, Al Horford? How is he now going to be utilized? We looked at Tobias Harris, some of the bench players as well. He had so many unbelievable things to say and so many interesting things to say that I grabbed the audio cut so we can listen and react. He's a very smart basketball mind. I value his opinion tremendously, and some things might surprise you. So, let's dive into these audio cuts. But before we do not forget that this episode of Sports Talk with Broads is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. And with over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, they are home to your solar experts. We are talking about $0 electric bills. Their solar program helps eliminate your electric bill completely. They will make sure you receive all the state and federal incentives available for switching to solar. They also provide clean, healthy, soft water with new water purification systems, backup energy services, tree removals, electrical upgrades, you name it. Their information is in the description. Make sure you check them out. Seriously, though, when it comes to this basketball team, it's hard for me to sleep now. And I know the news just broke, right? I mean, this is definitely new news within the last day or so, but that's how much it has definitely sparked me for some new interest with this team. Because I did think it was important to change something. Something needed to be done. This team needed a little bit of spark. That's what they needed to do. Now, you can credit Brett Brown for giving him that spark, but I really doubt that's how people are going to assess this situation. And once again, I mentioned this on my podcast yesterday. I don't want to hear that you've been screaming that Ben Simmons is not a point guard since they started this thing. Because joke's on you, the dude won Rookie of the Year, he's been to back-to-back All-Star games. He's done something right. Go look at his stats. He's done something right at the point guard position. You don't tell LeBron James after he leads the league in assists that he should have never played small forward for all of those years because he had a good year at point guard afterwards. That's just showing me how good Ben Simmons really is. That you can throw him into the NBA at the point guard position and he can do it. And you can throw him in other positions and guess what? He can do it. And he spoke about that. He spoke about that to the media via Zoom or whatever platform they're using, and he said, throw me in 1 through 5. I don't care. Throw me in 1 through 5. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, the most interesting thing that Marc Jackson said to Mike Gill and myself was this.
Not get anything confused here. Ben is still going to be doing the same old. He's still going to be catching the ball, acting like a Tesla Model X. And with his speed from 0 to 60, and still be the primary ball handler. It's just that they added another floor spacer out there to help space the floor, to help Ben get to the rim more, as well as gives Joel more room to function.
How about that? He says that Ben Simmons is still going to have the ball in his hands. Ben Simmons is still going to be that guy when it comes to running this offense. And I think that is very important. And I kind of got sucked into the whole Ben Simmons playing off the ball a little bit more than I probably should have. I knew that he was still going to have a significant role in this offense. I knew that it was more of a point forward than it was a standard power forward where he was just going to be sitting down low or, stretching the floor. Although if he was going to play more of a legit power forward role, it would be more down low than shooting the 3 ball because we all understand that he doesn't shoot the basketball. But moral of the story is Marc Jackson says, look, he is still going to be this guy that runs the offense. It's more about adding Shake Milton to the mix for another ball handler, yes, but to stretch the floor out. So what it really is, it's getting Al Horford off the floor, putting Shake Milton in just so so you have a different look offensively, just so you now have shooters who are threats, and it just spaces everything out differently. But ultimately, it still will be Ben Simmons running this offense, and I think that is very important. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still going to be times where, you know what, Shake Milton is the guy that has the ball in his hands. There will be times where Ben Simmons is utilized being the roller and being worked into this offense with different looks. No doubt about it. He's not claiming that Ben Simmons is always 100% going to be the guy like he was back before this switch happened, because that would be silly, right? There's a reason why Shake Milton is now being entered into the lineup, because he can give you the ability to run the point guard position at times. But let's not act as if this isn't Ben Simmons' offense. And I think that is really important to look at. Like, this is still Ben Simmons' offense. He's still the guy. He's still calling the plays. He's the point forward at this point. It changes things, yes, but let's not lose sight of who has been the floor general for years when it comes to this basketball team. And that is the 6'10 Benjamin Simmons. But when he said that, I did kind of take a step back, like, whoa, okay, hold on. I heard Ben Simmons was playing off the ball. I know he's learning some new skills when it comes to certain plays and being utilized differently. And I knew he would still have a big piece in making plays happen with the ball in his hands and facilitating. But I think I got carried away with what this really means. Ben is the guy. Ben will be the leader when it comes to the offensive side of the game. And let's not lose focus to that. All of you, Ben Simmons is not a point guard people. Because essentially, running the show still goes through Ben Simmons. Now, I thought maybe if he's down low more, it might take away from his facilitating and how he's able to move the rock. I thought that there would be times where maybe if he got doubled, he'd be able to kick out and find the open man, or he'd be able to roll to the basket, and when he rolls to the basket, maybe two guys kind of collapse on him and he can move it over to Joel Embiid. This is what Mark Jackson had to say about getting the assists.
The only thing you're going to see a difference is, I think you'll see his assist score, but I think his points and rebounds will stay around the same. I just think his assists will go up because it adds another floor spacer.
Interesting. I think you might see the assists go down just a bit because I think he'll naturally be closer to the basket at times. So I feel as if that his points are going to go up because he'll be closer to the rim. He might get fouled more. He's got to hit those free throws, no doubt about it. But because he's naturally closer to the rim, he might score more. And then that might take away from some of his assists. But he sees it as, with Shake Milton out there, that gives Ben Simmons another target to move the ball. And as he stated, Ben is still the guy. So with his philosophy, adding Shake Milton and Ben Simmons still being the dude who is the floor general, that gives Ben Simmons more opportunities to get more assists. And that's interesting. I hope he's right. I really do. I hope he is right. He thinks that you see the same amount of rebounds, you see the same amount of points. I don't care what position Ben Simmons is playing. I hope he gets more points. I get what he averages, close to 17 points per game. Like, that's stellar, no doubt about it. Especially when you factor in what he does defensively, grabbing boards and making unbelievable passes. But I would like to see Ben, no matter what position he's playing, get that 22 points per game vibe. How about that? I think Ben Simmons can get to that 22.5. Realistically, I want more. I think when he has those type of games where he gives you 28, 29 points, and he gives you those 10 rebounds, 9 assists, like, I want that consistently. And I think eventually we will get that Ben Simmons, but patience is the key. He did speak. I want to replay that cut because he did speak about this spacing on the floor. So just listen to the end again, and I will tell you my thoughts.
The only thing you're going to see a difference is, I think you'll see his assist score, but I think his points and rebounds will stay around the same. I just think his assists will go up because it adds another floor spacer.
The floor spacer, it's big. But I just wonder, what does this mean for Joel Embiid? I do think it's big for perimeter play, but what does this do for Joel Embiid? I've seen cuts where Ben Simmons is constantly moving. He's rolling. He's nonstop. He's going everywhere. He's passing the ball while he's moving. He's working around players. Like, it's magnificent, and it does work with Joel Embiid when he did play off the ball at times. Like, I've seen it happen, but I don't know. Like, are players now going to double Joel Embiid and then leave Ben Simmons open at some point? Let's be real. Joel Embiid's struggle is passing the ball out of double teams. And he's gotten better at it, no doubt about it. I've actually seen him groom in that area. But if teams now just start doubling Joel Embiid, what does that mean for Ben Simmons? Now, of course, maybe Ben Simmons is open. Maybe that leaves somebody else open. But just the nature of the stretch four is so big for the center position. If you don't have a stretch four realistically out there, then what happens? It definitely messes up the spacing with Ben Simmons being there, because he's not going to be hanging out in the corner, and if he is, teams are just going to let him hang out in the corner. Maybe he knocks down a three or so to put some respect on his name, but I really highly doubt that. Until I see that, I'm not getting sucked into that nonsense. I need to see it first. Let's see what he had to say on Shake Milton.
He's been proven from every time he's getting a chance that he is capable of being a contributor out there. I really like that decision because also he was a point guard in college, and he is capable of doing that.
He is capable out there. He is capable. What does capable mean, though? What he has done, is that an outlier, or is that what he really is? Now, if he's not as good as he was when everything was going on without Ben Simmons, that's okay. I don't need him to be that good. Realistically, I don't expect him to be that good, because I think that was an unbelievable run based off of making the most of his opportunity without Ben Simmons. But now Ben Simmons is going to be there. And hey, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that is Shake Milton. You will always find a diamond somewhere. Jimmy Butler was the last pick in the first round, right? You will find guys. Matisse Thybulle, he was a snag that late in the first round. Like, guys are found all over the place. Draymond Green, he was a guy. Big important piece to that Golden State Warriors team. Whatever you want to say about him, okay, go ahead, say something about him. At the end of the day, he had an important role. Shake Milton, he could be that player that is an important piece, and it doesn't have to be what he was against the Clippers. It's nice to know that that's in there. It's nice to know that maybe somehow, some way that could pop out during a certain situation in a legit playoff game. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but to know it's in there, we've seen it, maybe it does come out. But if he gives you 10 to 12 points per game, gives you 6 assists, is that okay? Are you all right with that? He mentioned he did have some experience playing that position in college. Now, college is not the NBA, of course, but at least he's been there and been comfortable handling the rock like that. I'm intrigued by Shake Milton, though. No doubt about it. Now, I asked Mark Jackson specifically about Tobias Harris, because I like Tobias Harris at the 4. This shifts Tobias Harris at the 3. And it's something that I just feel the 3 doesn't come natural to him. And the opponents are different. You have that mismatch at the 4 position with Toby, and the game naturally flows for him when he is playing the 4. So I asked Mark Jackson, what do you think about Toby when he plays the 3 compared to that power forward position?
Tobias is a mismatch problem when he's at the 4. At the 3, I think he's, how can I say this? I believe that he's capable of doing good things, but I really believe that for him to really flourish, he has to play the 4. I really think when he has a big advantage at the 4 over teams, and he's a help floor spacers, and then when you put the smaller players on him, he can use his shoulders and his side.
I could not agree more. Here's the thing, though. I think Toby can play the three. It's just not what he is best at. But if you look at now Ben Simmons being a point forward, if you will, you have Al Horford, who was signed here to be a 4. Big contract, by the way. Ben Simmons, who isn't going anywhere, who is a point forward at this moment. Who knows if this is long-term or not. And then you have Tobias Harris, who plays the 4 best when it comes to his game. So think about how much money is now involved in the power forward situation. Now, Tobias can play the 3, so it's not that big of a deal. Ben Simmons, you can kind of play him all around right now, and I guess that's the experiment, and you don't know how long-term this really is. This could just be for the rest of this run here. And with Al Horford, he's really a center, but he was signed here for a 4. It's just a mess at that 4 spot right now. There's no denying it. You can't really sugarcoat it. Elton Brand, you look at him, and I like Elton Brand's aggressiveness. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, I actually like that he has balls. I like the fact that he's not afraid. I'm all for it. I can get behind it. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't, that does not mean there's no mistakes involved. There sure can be, and only time will tell. But it does look like at this very moment, a little interesting when it comes to that power forward position if Ben Simmons does become more of a point forward full time. But speaking about Al Horford, let's hear what he said about his role.
He needs to be a backup to Joel, and well as when Joel misses games, fill in at the 5 spot. That's what I think his primary role is for this team and for the success of his team. But when you see how much he's making a year, you expect a little more. But I think with Al, if we can rely on him to accept that role, everything will be fine.
So it's about Al Horford accepting that role. Look at that contract. Yeah, you know what? It's underwhelming to think he's going to just be a backup center. But let's see how it actually plays out, because last year you saw when Joel Embiid left, the team got annihilated and Greg Monroe was an absolute brutal player in very limited minutes. And I actually had somebody tell me, well, Broads, shame on Brett Brown for putting Greg Monroe in. Oh, I'm sorry, you wanted Amir Johnson? Who did you want out there? There was nobody. You can't yell at Brett Brown for putting Greg Monroe in for a handful of minutes when Joel Embiid needed a rest. That's how bad their roster was, and that's why the Sixers went out and got a player who can actually play on the floor when Joel Embiid was not in the game. So that is the reason why Al Horford came here anyway. Is it underwhelming to think about his contract and to think about what his new role is? Absolutely. But you saw at times last year in the playoffs, the Toronto Raptors go with the look of Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, and that was something when they threw 2 big guys at the Sixers, and it totally overwhelmed them. There can be a situation during the playoffs because matchups really matter, because making adjustments and throwing different looks at teams really matter. Maybe there's a chance where in a big playoff game during a big moment, you throw 2 big guys at teams for a little bit, and that kind of overwhelms them, it swarms them, and it's the reason why the 76ers come out on top. I'm not willing to throw away any circumstance that can possibly happen, because I've seen playoff basketball for a long damn time now, and I've seen so many scenarios where it's not traditionally what that team has done throughout the regular season, but guess what? When it comes to playoffs and you got to try something new and you got to give a team a different look, it works and it's beneficial. And who knows if Al Horford can be that player when it comes to different looks for teams. So, I get it. I get why it was I get the frustration when it comes to Al Horford, but I do like his approach to this point. Brett Brown said he's been very vocal. Not only that, he's been very physical, and Al Horford himself has been looking at this as a fresh start, and I think he needed that. He's not a dumb person. He's a very smart person. He hears the noise. He hears the fan base. He hears the critics, and he knows personally that he has not been playing that well when it comes to how solid of a player he is, so I think he needed that regroup. I think he needed that mental break, and it seems like he's approaching this with the right mindset, being that specific player that is that role dude, and that's tough for a veteran who's been around for a while, who's been a starter in this league to have to accept that role, but here he is, and he has to accept it. It seems like he's doing that, and that is no doubt a big sign for Al Horford. Now, I also asked him, and I don't know if I took that cut specifically, about the pick and pop game with Al Horford, but it doesn't look like it is in this audio file. I don't think so. Nope, I don't, but it's okay. I just asked him about the pick and pop game and can he be utilized more in that pick and pop with possibly having another ball handler like Shake Milton out there. Do you think that that can be utilized more? And he thinks no doubt that that is the strongest part of Al Horford's game when it comes to the offensive side. Of course, he does other things well, no doubt, but something he's really strong at is the pick and pop game, so that should be utilized more, and I thought that that was an interesting approach. How about Matisse Thybulle, though? How about Matisse Thybulle? Is he going to play many minutes?
I believe that Matisse has earned minutes. I think when it comes to playoffs, we know how he is on one end of the floor, but can he shoot the ball well enough to command playoff minutes? So the Matisse question is scratching my head because I think now I believe Glenn Robinson is a more consistent three-point shooter, and he gives you a little something of Matisse on the defensive end. My only question is if Matisse can show them in the next 2-3 weeks that he can shoot the ball good enough, I really believe Matisse gets that ninth spot over Glenn Robinson.
Wow, how about that? So he likes what Matisse brings to the table defensively, but questions what's going to happen on the on the offensive side of the basketball. And it's ironic because with Furkan Korkmaz, you have the complete opposite. You have a guy who can knock down shots but can't defend a lick, and then he's going to get minutes. It's obvious the team needs spacing, so he's going to get minutes. While you have Matisse Thybulle, who's very active on the D side, he's willing to take risks, and he's a decent three-point shooter. I think his numbers are flawed. If you look at his stats now, it makes it seem like he's a way better three-point shooter than he really is, but he's very, very streaky. I'm intrigued for what he can be. I'm definitely intrigued for what he can develop into, but ultimately, I don't think that he's ready yet when it comes to that offensive side of the game, but you might not see a lot of Matisse Thybulle based off of his youth. I talked about how he does definitely gamble a bit, and when you gamble in the playoffs, that can hurt you when it comes to fouls, but it can also help you, right? If you're super aggressive, you're swarming on teams, they might not know how to react, which is definitely big and could be a momentum swing. Also, though, keep in mind there's no crowd. A Matisse Thybulle steal, which leads to a huge slam, isn't the same when nobody's really going nuts except for Norvell Pell on the edge of the bench and Raul Neto with some golf claps, right? So it's not the same. That's not to say that Matisse Thybulle can't get any minutes. I'm not saying that at all, but it's interesting to hear Mark Jackson say, look, it looks like Glenn Robinson III might have an edge unless Matisse Thybulle really proves something, because Glenn Robinson III can give you enough defensively, but he provides more with spacing. So it's obvious that spacing is a huge key to this team. With Shake Milton, that adds spacing. With Glenn Robinson III, that's more spacing than Matisse Thybulle. With Furkan Korkmaz, the guy can't defend a lick, but they need spacing. So, it's definitely very big when it comes to being able to stretch this floor for the team. How about this bench, though? More on the 76ers bench.
With Shake in the starting lineup, you still got Alec Burks, you got Al Horford, you got Furkan, don't forget about Furk, and Glenn Robinson Jr. That's 9. I believe that Glenn Robinson expected to be playing consistent minutes, and when he got here, I think the wires were crossed, and he wasn't given the opportunity, but I really believe they might need to count on him to be another wing defender for this team.
Okay, so he said that before the Matisse Thybulle in real time when we had the interview. A name that wasn't mentioned was Mike Scott. Mike Scott not mentioned. Now, I don't know what to think about Mike Scott. Honestly, he had a poor year. And I talked about how many 4s they have right now. Mike Scott's another 4. Could he play the 5 at any point? Maybe based off the matchup he could. And I don't mind him at the 5 if the matchup is right. But you would think that whenever Joel Embiid is not on the floor, that's Al Horford's role, right? It would be ridiculous to think that it wouldn't be at times. Like, is there a possibility where Al Horford's playing the 4 and Mike Scott's playing the 5 at one point? I don't think so. Maybe it's the other way around where Mike Scott would play the 4 and Al Horford would play the 5. But he did not mention Mike Scott's name. It's possible that in that scenario when Al Horford's at the 5, Tobias is sliding down to the 4, and that adds Glenn Robinson the 3rd to that 3 position. It's a lot, though. The team has a lot to juggle around, and it's going to be hard to make that decision at times. You're going to get players playing hot on certain nights. Some guys might be cold. If Furkan's not making his shots, you got to pull him quick. Who do you insert at that point? Alec Burks is a guy who can generate his shot. You know, someone who really hasn't been talked about too much throughout this process is Josh Richardson. I talked about how he's realistically going to turn into like a standard 2 guard where he's not going to have like the ball in his hands creating too much. It might happen naturally based off of him getting the ball in certain situations, but, you know, is he going to turn into more of a traditional just shooting guard based off of having some other guys out there on the floor? So, does Mark Jackson, let's go to the playoffs right now. You have an opportunity to pick who you want to face. Mark Jackson, who are you facing in the first round? The Boston Celtics or the Miami Heat?
I think Boston just has too much firepower, gentlemen. I really do. I think Boston has too much firepower with them young guns, and people forget about Hayward because he's had a couple of nicks during this season. But I really think he is capable of being a big-time playoff contender, and I wouldn't want to see Boston early.
Oh, doesn't want to see Boston early. I want him. And I know the regular season record doesn't have anything to do with the playoffs, but I want to see it. I think the Sixers match up well against them when it comes to size. I want to see Brett Brown go up against Brad Stevens. The alternative, the Miami Heat, right? Possibly the Miami Heat. There's other teams in play, but with the Heat, do I want to see Jimmy Butler in an empty arena trash-talking these guys going into Ben Simmons' head? Although maybe I do. Maybe I want Ben Simmons to experience that and shut him the hell up because Ben Simmons is a guy who naturally does accept the challenge at one point. He gets beat down, he gets criticized, and then boom, out of nowhere, he kind of flies out of a cannon. So maybe that whole Jimmy Butler thing would have so much brewing in him that eventually he takes off. I mean, I think both are a test for this team, no doubt. Both of these series would be a good win when it comes to the playoffs. Like, this is something that I've said when it comes to this team to this point. They've had playoff wins. They beat the Miami Heat when they weren't that good early in the playoffs, and they beat the Brooklyn Nets. They're good wins because it's playoff experience, but in terms of that big playoff series win, they haven't had that. Now, I'm okay with patience. I'm okay with learning. I'm okay with growing. People were okay with Michael Jordan growing, but when it comes to the 76ers, apparently that's not in play. He got beat down by the bad boy Pistons, beat down by the bad boy Pistons, beat down by the bad boy Pistons. Then he eventually got over the hurdle. I think this team needs to have that one big win. And even if it's the first round, it's against a better opponent. So I think that speaks volume when it comes to how big of a win it is. Now, how about in the second round? Would you rather see the Bucks or would you rather see the Raptors?
I think 76 got Milwaukee's number. Toronto, and I know they got that beast called Giannis, a.k.a. the Greek Freak. I understand that. But I truly believe that if I'm the 76, I want to see Milwaukee.
He wants to see Milwaukee in the second round, and that lines up pretty much with the Miami Heat. If I am correct on that, it would be the Heat and then the Bucks in the second round, or is it the Heat and then the? Is it the Heat and then the? Would it be the Heat and then the Raptors? No, I gotta look this up. If they do end up playing, let's look at the standings here. If they do end up playing the Celtics in the first round, they would play the Raptors. And if they played the Heat, they would play the Bucks. So that would essentially work out for what Mark Jackson wanted to do there, you know? And he kind of continued on what actually would happen when it comes to defense and the Milwaukee Bucks.
Giannis sets up that team's three-point shooting ability. And I'm curious, I wouldn't mind taking a risk on collapsing that defense, forcing guys in the paint, and forcing them to kick it out, make them guys reach from the three-point line early into the restart.
Oh, okay. I love it. I literally love it. So I had a phenomenal time interviewing Mark Jackson with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN, the Sports Bash from 2 to 6 p.m. We are on every single weekday. It's been an awesome ride to this point, and I can't wait to continue doing the show with Mike Gill. We've had a blast over the last couple months, and it's been really fun. We've had great engagement with people who love to listen to the show, and we'll leave it on this note. We asked him who he would put his money on when it comes to the NBA restart.
If I had to bet my money on who would have the better start in the restart, will be people like Joel, people like Ben, even people like Giannis. Giannis. People that's going to you got to scratch your head about what can we expect from Tobias, what can we expect from Richardson, from Shake, what can we expect from the guys who rely a lot on the 3-point line. With this kind of layoff, have they been getting the shots up? Have they been getting the reps in? Have they been able to?
I love it. I love it. He said Joel. He said Ben. Amazing. He's definitely someone where he starts talking about basketball, you can feel the passion out of his voice, and he's just great. No doubt about it. I love him on the pregame show. I love him on the postgame show. He does a phenomenal job. So I want to hear your thoughts on what he had to say. A lot of interesting things and a lot of interesting opinions on how this is going to play out. And that bench is really intriguing. Maybe no Matisse, maybe Glenn Robinson III over him. Ben Simmons having more of a role in the offense than some people seem to believe. It's going to be so unique, so different, very weird, awkward environment. Who the hell knows what to expect, but I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait for that date to come. So just remember that this episode of Sports Talk with Bros is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, Orbit works directly with you to ensure that you are getting the best deal. Not only can they provide $0 electric bills for you when going solar, which is huge, by the way, we are also talking water purification systems, clean, healthy, soft water for your family, tree removals, battery storage, backup energy services, electrical upgrades, and more. Visit them online. Their information is in the description. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.